Just like me, I'm assuming you guys have seen all the TikToks about this guy named King Baldwin IV, and that's probably why you're here seeing this video right now. From all these videos I'm seeing, I'm like, dang, this guy's probably like the most badass dude of all time. And I wanted to do a little deep dive to see, like, is it actually real or is all this fake? So I'm here today to give you who is the real King Baldwin IV. Now, his character was portrayed in a 2005 movie called The Kingdom of Heaven. This is where every clip you see on TikTok is coming from. And honestly, I understand all the hype. Look at that mask. So let's see who he really was. King Baldwin was born in 1161 to a king of Jerusalem. Baldwin IV grew up in a happy home in his father's court, and according to his tutor, William of Tyre, showed great promise to become a leader in the future. But at the age of 9, he was diagnosed with leprosy. This was an infection caused by slow-growing bacteria that messed with his facial features. Baldwin's teacher knew he had it because he had a bad cut and didn't feel any pain. Leprosy messes with your pain tolerance, so that's how they knew he had it. And then once Baldwin was diagnosed with leprosy, his dad wanted to keep it a secret. The reason for this being his father was on his ascension to the throne, and he thought that maybe if they found out that his son had leprosy, he could lose the ability to become the king. And another reason that they hid it is because if they would have found out, they would have sent Baldwin to a place called the Order of St. Lazarus. This was a place commonly known as the Leper Brothers of Jerusalem. This group was exclusively formed for knights and important nobility who had leprosy. Even though it sounded like a good spot for Baldwin to be, his father still believed that it was better if he took care of him instead of sending him away. Historians even claim that if his father would have sent him to this group, Baldwin probably would have lived a lot longer than he did. Nevertheless, Baldwin's father loved him just the same and even secretly hired Arabians to give Baldwin treatment. When eventually Baldwin's father came down with dysentery, a disease in your intestines, he feared that his last days had come. At this time, the high court in Jerusalem knew of Baldwin's health, so they really did not want him to be the king. They looked for other options, but all Baldwin had was 2 sisters and 1 half-sister. Baldwin's cousins were not seen as good options because they were selfish and divergent, and they thought they had no business ruling Jerusalem. So the court had to side with Baldwin. On the 5th of July, 1174, Baldwin was crowned the king of Jerusalem at only 13 years of age. It's not like this was just at any time either. This was during the Crusades. And the Crusades were essentially a series of intense religious wars between the 11th and 15th centuries, primarily involving the European Christians and the Muslims, largely over control of the holy sites considered sacred by both sides. The most famous battles were aimed at capturing Jerusalem, which now Baldwin was in control of holding. What's interesting about the Crusades is that despite the brutal conflicts, they boosted trades and even spurred the Renaissance thanks to the new goods, ideas, and innovations filtered back from the Middle East. So hopefully this gives you a better picture of what Baldwin had to deal with as his time as a ruler. Even though he was the king, he was still too young to rule, so the government was initially under the regency of the kingsman Raymond III until 1176, when Baldwin eventually turned 16 years old. And when he turned 16 years old is when he proved that he's an absolute Baldwin led his forces against Saladin, who was pretty much known as like the LeBron James of conquerors. Like, this guy Saladin was no joke. He fought in 25 battles during his time, and he just lost a battle to a 16-year-old with leprosy. Put that on his huddle. Even though King Baldwin had leprosy and it was really affecting him, he did not care. He still led his small army into battle. Saladin had 10 times the amount of troops, but Baldwin made him turn around and run all the way back to Cairo.
I pray you pull back your cavalry and leave this matter to me.
I pray you retire unharmed to Damascus. Reynald of Chatillon will be punished. I swear it. Withdrawal, we will all die here. Do we have terms?
We have terms.
Salaam alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
This would be known as Baldwin's most significant win. And eventually Saladin would come back in 1187 and take over Jerusalem. But Baldwin wasn't there for that, so it doesn't really count in this video. Anyways, let's get back to the Leper King. This battle wasn't the only one that Baldwin had to face in his time. Since starting a full-scale attack on Egypt trying to seize Saladin's land, he knew that he couldn't do it alone. To support his Egyptian campaign, Baldwin needed naval aid. So he tried to secure an alliance with the Emperor Manuel in Constantinople, who agreed on the condition of establishing a Byzantine protectorate over Jerusalem. However, the plan had some setbacks. Baldwin's #1 guy died of malaria, leaving Baldwin without a deputy as he himself is falling ill. The Byzantines initially sent a fleet for the Egyptian invasion but had to withdraw due to a lack of cooperation among Baldwin's other allies, leading to the collapse of their short alliance and allowing Saladin's powers to remain unchecked in Egypt. Throughout, Baldwin navigated these complex political and military challenges while trying to maintain alliances and manage his health issues. Now, I want to see if Baldwin had any like sweet quotes or anything like that, but the thing is, Baldwin really didn't say much at all. Therefore, any quote in the movie that you see that looks awesome is just made up by the screenwriters, which sucks because they have sweet lines like this.
The whole world is in chess. Any move can be the death of you. Do anything except remain where you started, and you cannot be sure of your end. When I was 16, I won a great victory. I felt in that moment I would live to be 100. Now I know I shall not see 30. None of us know our end, really, or what hand will guide us there. A king may move a man. A father may claim a son. That man can also move himself. And only then does that man truly begin his own game.
The only quote that they actually have from Baldwin is a letter he wrote to France when he was asking for them to send another leader because he was falling weak to leprosy. And that was a theme with King Baldwin. He was so worried about dying young and wanted someone strong to come in and protect Jerusalem. So when the time came and Baldwin knew he was gonna die, he named his 9-year-old nephew Baldwin V his successor. That was because Baldwin himself couldn't have any kids, and his nephew was the only one he knew he could trust, even though he was 9 years old. And then came the time. At age 24, King Baldwin IV died of leprosy, leaving the kingdom of Jerusalem to his nephew. And just an editor's note, Baldwin V died a year later of unknown causes, so that did not last long. In the movie, Baldwin's mask is removed, showing his deformed face from the leprosy, but we don't know if this ever happened in real life. And then the last thing I want to cover is his mask. The movie makes Baldwin look like such a cool character with the mask that he has on, but sadly, after looking up if he actually wore a mask, there is no evidence that he covered up his leprosy with a mask. I know, it sucks because it looks so cool. But even though there's no evidence that he wore the mask, doesn't mean he didn't do it. So I'm just gonna go to bed at night assuming that he wore the mask because it looked cool. Alright, I'll leave you guys with the final TikTok on King Baldwin. I'll see you next week.